She asked a stranger for help, knowing he was the richest man in the city. Part 2. When worlds collide, entering his world the next afternoon, carefully wrapped painting in hand, feeling like she was about to enter a different universe. The 40-story glass tower gleamed. In the sunlight, its modern architecture a stark contrast to the modest neighborhood where she lived. Employees in expensive suits moved purposefully through the revolving doors, all looking like they belonged in this world of corporate success. Nora had chosen her outfit carefully, her one good dress. Professional, but not expensive, paired with her grandmother's vintage blazer that had seen better days but still looked respectable. She had spent extra time on her appearance, not wanting to look out of place in Daniel's world, though she suspected nothing she owned would quite fit in here. The lobby was even more intimidating than the exterior. Marble floors reflected the light from massive chandeliers, and abstract sculptures that probably cost more than her annual rent decorated the space, who looked like they belonged in a fashion magazine. "I'm here to see Daniel Morrison," Nora told the receptionist, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "Nora Bennett," the woman asked, with a professional smile. "Mr. Morrison is expecting you. Please take the executive elevator to the 40th floor. His assistant will meet you there." As the elevator climbed toward the top floor, Nora's nervousness grew. She was about to see Daniel in his natural environment, surrounded by the wealth and power that defined his daily life. Would he be different here? Would the easy friendship they had built over text messages survive the reality of their vastly different circumstances? The elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area that looked more like a luxury hotel lobby than an office space. Floor to ceiling, windows offered panoramic views of the city, and the furniture looked like it belonged in an art museum. A woman in her 50s, elegant and professionally dressed, approached with a warm smile. "Ms. Bennett. I'm Patricia, Mr. Morrison's executive assistant. He's just finishing up a conference call, but he asked me to show you around while you wait." Pointing out meeting rooms and offices, Nora tried to reconcile this world with the Daniel she had gotten to know through their conversations. This was the environment of a man who controlled $1 billion empire, who made decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions of customers. "He's very excited about your painting," Patricia said as they walked. "He's been talking about it all week. It's been a long time since I've seen him this enthusiastic about anything outside of work." Before Nora could respond, a familiar voice called her name. She turned to see Daniel emerging from a conference room, but he looked different here. The casual confidence she had noticed at the coffee shop was amplified in this setting. This was a man completely comfortable wielding power. Someone who was clearly at the center of everything that happened in this building. "Nora," he said, his face lighting up with genuine pleasure. "Thank you for coming. I hope Patricia's been taking good care of you." "She's been wonderful," Nora replied, still adjusting to seeing Daniel in his professional element. "Shall we go to my office? I'm eager to see where the painting will hang." The private sanctuary Daniel's office was even more impressive than Nora had expected. The space was enormous, with one wall entirely made of windows, offering a breathtaking view of the city's skyline. Despite its size, the office felt surprisingly personal. Bookshelves lined another wall, filled with volumes that looked actually read rather than just decorative. Guitar stood in one corner, and several photographs on his desk showed Daniel in casual settings hiking, playing guitar, laughing with friends. "This is where I spend most of my waking hours," Daniel said. Watching her take in the space, it needs something to make it feel less corporate, more human. Nora could see exactly where her painting would fit. There was a perfect wall opposite his desk, currently bare except for a single spotlight that would illuminate whatever hung there. She could envision her piece in that space, bringing warmth and color to the sophisticated but somewhat sterile environment. "May I see it?" Daniel asked, nodding toward the wrapped canvas. Nora carefully unwrapped the painting, revealing her abstract representation of dawn over a city. The warm golds and deep blues seemed to capture light and movement, suggesting both the energy of urban life and the peaceful moment when day begins. She had worked on it for hours, layering colors and textures to create depth and emotion. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, studying the piece with the kind of attention that told Nora he was truly seeing it, not just looking at it. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she had heard before. "It's beautiful, Nora. It's exactly what this space needed. He looked up at her with something that might have been wonder. How did you know? You've never been here before. But somehow, you captured exactly what was missing. I thought about what you told me about new beginnings, Nora said, feeling a flush of pride at his reaction, and about the feeling of hope when everything seems dark. I wanted to create something that would remind you of that feeling every time you looked at it. Daniel helped her hang the painting in the designated spot, and immediately the entire office felt different. The warm colors of the artwork seemed to bring life to the modern space, creating a focal point that was both sophisticated and deeply personal. It's perfect, Daniel said, standing back to admire the effect. Thank you. As they stood there together looking at her art in its new home, Nora felt a shift in their dynamic. This wasn't just a business transaction anymore. The painting represented a bridge between their two worlds, her creativity and his success, coming together to create something neither could have achieved alone. The dinner invitation. I'd like to take you to dinner, Daniel said suddenly, to celebrate the painting, to show you that despite all this, he gestured around the office. I'm still the same person you've been texting with. Nora hesitated. Accepting would mean stepping further into his world, but refusing felt like backing away from something that could be important. Where? My favorite restaurant, Daniel replied. It's not fancy, I promise. Just a little Italian place that reminds me of where I came from. An hour later, Nora found herself in Daniel's car, not the expensive luxury vehicle she had expected, but a well-maintained sedan that looked like it belonged to any successful professional rather than a billionaire. As they drove through the city, Daniel pointed out landmarks and shared stories about his early days building his company. I used to walk past that building every day when I was starting out, he said, indicating a modest office complex. I had my first office on the 3rd floor, just one room that I shared with my only employee. I would look up at towers like the one we just left and dream about having an office with a view someday. The restaurant he took her to was indeed modesta, family-owned Italian place in an older neighborhood, with checkered tablecloths and the kind of authentic atmosphere that couldn't be manufactured. The moment they walked in, the owner greeted Daniel like an old friend. Danny, the elderly man called out, embracing Daniel warmly. Your usual table? As they were seated in a corner booth, Nora realized that this was where Daniel came when he wanted to escape from his corporate world. The other diners were families and couples from the neighborhood. No one seemed to recognize or care about Daniel's wealth and status. I've been coming here for 15 years, Daniel explained. Since before I had any money to speak of, Giuseppe and his family have never treated me any differently. Whether I was struggling to pay for a plate of spaghetti or could afford to buy the whole restaurant. Over dinner, Daniel shared more of his story. He talked about growing up in a working-class family, about his parents who had sacrificed to help him get through college, about the early years of his company when failure seemed more likely than success. Nora found herself relaxing as she realized that despite his current wealth, Daniel understood struggle in a way that was genuine. What about you? Nora told him about her childhood, about how drawing and painting had been her escape when her parents went through a difficult divorce. She talked about art school, about the dreams she had harbored of making a living from her creativity, and about the harsh reality of trying to survive as an artist in an expensive city. I sometimes wonder if I'm just being naive, she admitted. Maybe I should give up on art and get a regular job, something stable and predictable. Don't, Daniel said firmly. The world needs people who create beauty, who see things differently. What you do bringing emotion and meaning into people's lives through your art, that's more valuable than most people realize. Growing closer as the weeks passed, Daniel and Nora began spending more time together. She would send him photos of works in progress, and he would offer thoughtful feedback that showed he was learning to see art through her eyes. Their relationship existed in a strange space between friendship and something more. There was an undeniable attraction between them, but both seemed cautious about crossing that line. The differences in their circumstances created a complexity that neither was sure how to navigate, Daniel began. Nora, but he was careful to pay her fairly for each one, insisting that their personal relationship not interfere with his respect for her as an artist. Through his connections, he also began introducing her to other collectors, though he was subtle about it, not wanting her to feel like charity. "There's someone I'd like you to meet," he said one afternoon as they walked through a sculpture garden. Downtown, Richard Chen owns several galleries in the city, and he's looking for new artists to represent. "I showed him photos of your work, and he's interested in meeting with you." Nora stopped walking, sudden panic rising in her chest. "Daniel, I can't meet gallery owners as your friend. They'll think I'm only getting opportunities because of our relationship." "You're getting opportunities because your art is exceptional," Daniel replied firmly. "Richard doesn't care about our friendship. He cares about artists who can sell paintings and draw collectors to his galleries. Your work speaks for itself." Despite her fears, Nora agreed to the meeting with Richard Chen. To her surprise, the gallery owner treated her as a serious artist from the moment they met. He studied her portfolio with the kind of professional attention that told her this was about business, not personal favors. "Your use of color is remarkable," Richard said, examining several of her pieces. "I'd like to offer you a spot in our Emerging Artists Showcase next month." As Nora left the gallery with her first professional exhibition opportunity, she realized that Daniel had been right. Her art was good enough to succeed on its own merit. His connections had opened doors, but her talent was what would determine whether she walked through them successfully. The first kiss the night before her gallery opening. Nora was so nervous she could barely eat. Daniel had insisted on taking her to dinner to help her relax, but she found herself too anxious to enjoy the elegant restaurant he had chosen. "What if no one likes my work?" she asked, pushing food around her plate. "What if the only reason people come is because they know you'll be there? Then they'll come for me and leave talking about you," Daniel replied confidently. "Nora, you need to stop doubting yourself. Your art moves people. I see it every time someone looks at the painting in my office." After dinner, they walked along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting on the dark water. The spring evening was warm, and other couples strolled hand in hand along the path. The romantic atmosphere made it impossible to ignore the tension that had been building between them for weeks. "Daniel," Nora said finally, stopping near a bench overlooking the harbor. "What are we doing here? What do you mean?" he asked, though his expression suggested he knew exactly what she meant. "This," she gestured between them. "We're not just friends, but we're not exactly dating either. We're in this strange space, and I don't know how to navigate it." Daniel was quiet for a moment, looking out at the water. "I've been afraid to push for more because of who I am, what I represent. I didn't want you to feel pressured or overwhelmed. I've been afraid that you're only interested in me as some kind of project," Nora admitted. "The struggling artist you can rescue and feel good about helping?" Daniel turned to face her fully. "Nora, you are not a project. You're the first person I've met in years who sees me as just Daniel, not as a bank account or a business opportunity. You're talented, intelligent, beautiful, and completely unimpressed by my money. Do you have any idea how rare that is? It bought me groceries when I needed them most." "Not why I care about you. Why do you care about me?" Daniel asked, stepping closer. "Because you listen when I talk about art. Because you remember details about my paintings that even I forget. Because you tip the waitstaff at every restaurant like someone who's been in their position. Because you kept your friends Italian restaurant even after you could afford places 10 times more expensive." She paused, meeting his eyes. "Because you sent money to a stranger who asked for help without expecting anything in return." Daniel reached up to cup her face gently. "May I kiss you?" Instead of answering, Nora stood on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, then deeper, as they both stopped holding back. When they broke apart, Nora felt like something fundamental had shifted between them. "I want to try this," she said quietly. "But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that if this doesn't work out, you won't pull your support from my art career. I can't handle the thought that my professional future depends on our personal relationship working out." Daniel looked almost hurt by the request, but then nodded slowly. "I promise." "Your art career will succeed because you're talented, not because of anything between us." "But Nora, I don't want this to not work out." The gallery opening the next evening, Nora stood in Richard Chen's gallery, surrounded by her paintings and a crowd of well-dressed art enthusiasts. She had never imagined seeing her work displayed so professionally, with proper lighting and elegant frames that made each piece look more sophisticated than she had ever imagined possible. Daniel had arrived early, but he was careful to let her have the spotlight. He moved through the crowd, engaging in conversations about her work, but always directing attention back to her as the artist. Watching him support her career while staying in the background made Nora's feelings for him deepen even further. Boyfriend seems very proud, Richard Chen commented as they watched Daniel discussing one of her pieces with a potential collector. He's not, Nora began, then stopped. Actually, I think he might be. As the evening progressed, Nora found herself in conversations with collectors, other artists and gallery visitors who seemed genuinely interested in her work. Several people expressed interest in purchasing pieces, and one collector even asked about commissioning a custom work for her private collection. I love the emotional resonance in your abstracts, an elderly woman told her while studying the painting that now hung in Daniel's office, or rather, a similar piece Nora had created specifically for the exhibition. There's a sense of hope in your work that's quite rare in contemporary art. By the end of the evening, Nora had sold 3 paintings and received several commission inquiries. More importantly, she had proven to herself that her art could succeed in the professional world based on its own merit. The success felt entirely her own. Even though she knew Daniel's initial support had made it possible, building a life together over the following months. Nora and Daniel's relationship deepened as they learned to navigate the complexities of their different worlds. Daniel made efforts to understand the artistic community, attending gallery openings and art fairs with genuine enthusiasm rather than obligation. He learned the names of other artists, asked intelligent questions about technique and inspiration, and gradually became accepted as part of Nora's artistic circle. Nora, meanwhile, began to understand the pressures and responsibilities that came with Daniel's position. She attended a few corporate events with him, meeting his business associates and board members. While she never felt entirely comfortable in those settings, she appreciated seeing Daniel in his element, watching how he balanced genuine care for his employees with the hard decisions required to run a successful company. Their relationship wasn't without challenges. There were moments when the difference in their financial situations created tension, when Daniel casually suggested expensive vacations that represented months of Nora's income, or when he tried to solve her problems with money rather than understanding she needed to work through them herself. Can't just let you pay for everything, Nora said during one particular argument about her student loans. I need to be able to contribute to this relationship as an equal partner. Oh, why struggle with debt when I can easily help? Daniel countered, genuinely confused by her resistance. Because if you pay for everything, then I'm not your girlfriend. I'm someone you're supporting, Nora replied. These conversations were difficult, but necessary, and what it meant to be partners when their circumstances were so different. The proposal, a year and a half after their first accidental text exchange, Daniel took Nora back to the Italian restaurant where they had shared their first real date. Giuseppe, the owner, had become fond of them both, always ensuring they got the corner table and often sending over complimentary dishes for the beautiful couple. As they finished dinner, Daniel seemed unusually nervous, fidgeting with his napkin and checking his phone repeatedly. Is everything okay? Nora asked. You seem distracted tonight. I'm fine, Daniel said, though his voice was slightly strained. Actually, no, I'm not fine. I'm terrified. Before Nora could ask what he meant, Daniel stood up and dropped to one knee beside their table. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath as he pulled out a small velvet box. You changed my life with a wrong number text message. You've made me laugh, challenged me to be better, and shown me what it means to create beauty in the world. You've never once asked me for anything you hadn't earned, and you've given me everything I didn't know I needed. Tears were already streaming down Nora's face as he opened the box to reveal a vintage ring with an Art Deco design, not flashy or ostentatious, but elegant and clearly chosen with careful thought for her personal style. Will you marry me? Daniel asked. Yes, Nora whispered, then louder. Yes, of course, yes. The restaurant erupted in applause as Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger. Giuseppe appeared with a bottle of champagne, tears in his own eyes as he congratulated the couple who had become like family to him. The wedding and new beginnings, 6 months later. They were married in a ceremony that perfectly reflected both of their worlds. The venue was the sculpture garden, where Daniel had first told Nora about the gallery opportunity. A beautiful outdoor space that showcased art while remaining intimate and personal. Nora wore a vintage dress she had found at an estate sale and altered herself. Elegant, but not extravagant. Daniel wore a classic tuxedo, but he had asked the wedding party to wear colors that complemented Nora's artistic sensibilities. The decorations featured arrangements of flowers and branches that looked like living sculptures, and several of Nora's paintings were displayed around the garden, making the space feel like an art exhibition as much as a wedding. The guest list included Daniel's business associates and board members alongside Nora's artist friends and the various collectors who had become supporters of her work. Giuseppe catered the reception, bringing the warmth of his family restaurant to the elegant garden setting. During their first dance, as they swayed to music played by a string quartet, Daniel whispered in Nora's ear, "Thank you for responding to my text message. Thank you for not ignoring a stranger's desperate plea for help." Nora whispered back, 5 years later, 5 years after their wedding, Nora stood in her own gallery, not just exhibiting in someone else's space, but in the gallery she now owned. With Richard Chen as her business partner, her art had evolved and matured, gaining recognition not just locally but nationally. Several of her pieces were now in museum collections, and she had a waiting list of collectors interested in her work. Daniel had been instrumental in her success, not through direct financial support, but through his unwavering belief in her talent and his business acumen in helping her navigate the commercial side of the art world and building sustainable income streams from her creativity. Their relationship had also evolved. They had learned to balance their different backgrounds and perspectives, creating a partnership that honored both Daniel's drive for success and Nora's need for creative independence. Not just from Nora, but from other emerging artists, becoming a respected patron of the arts community. They had also started a foundation together, providing grants to struggling artists, particularly those facing the kind of financial crisis that had once nearly ended Nora's career. Every month, they received applications from artists asking for help with rent, supplies, or emergency expenses, and they funded as many as they could. "It's like paying forward that first text message," Nora had said, when they established the foundation. The full circle, on a quiet Sunday evening. They sat in their Homa-converted warehouse that Daniel had purchased and Nora had transformed into a perfect blend of living space and art studio, and Nora's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I hate to bother a stranger, but I'm desperate. I need $200 for my daughter's medical prescription. I'll pay you back as soon as I can. I know this is crazy, but I don't have anyone else to ask." Nora showed the message to Daniel, who smiled knowingly. "Wrong number?" he asked. "Wrong number," Nora confirmed. Without hesitation, she typed back, "You're not bothering me. What pharmacy? Call and pay for the prescription directly." As she arranged to help the stranger, just as Daniel had once helped her, Nora reflected on how a single moment of desperation had led to a love story that neither of them could have imagined. The wrong number that had seemed like her most embarrassing mistake had actually been the first step toward everything she had ever wanted. Their story proved that sometimes the most unexpected connections, born from moments of vulnerability and genuine human kindness, can grow into something beautiful and lasting. It showed that love could bridge any gap, financial, social, or otherwise, when two people were willing to see past circumstances to the person underneath. And it reminded them both that in a world that often felt disconnected and impersonal, a simple act of kindness toward a stranger could change everything. The text message that had begun with desperation had evolved into a love story that would last a lifetime, proving that sometimes our greatest mistakes are actually disguised blessings, leading us exactly where we need to be. As Nora finished arranging help for the stranger and settled back into Daniel's arms, she couldn't help but smile at the beautiful irony of it all. The woman who had once sent a desperate text to the wrong number was now in a position to be the unexpected answer to someone else's prayer. "Thank you," she whispered to Daniel, "not for the first time and certainly not for the last." "Thank you," he whispered back, understanding that they were both grateful not just for each other, but for the serendipitous moment that had brought them together, a wrong number that had turned out to be exactly right. If this story touched your heart even just a little, if you believe that kindness can heal and that love can grow from the most unexpected places, then don't forget to hit that hype button and subscribe to Every Verse Stories for more powerful tales that remind us what really matters. We share real, emotional, and inspiring stories that speak to Thoughtful. Your support helps us keep telling the stories that move the world. Subscribe, hit, and stay with us for stories that heal. This is Every Verse Stories. See you in the next one.